Welcome to the Fantasy Football Bastards Show. I'm your host, Joe Osno, here with Matthew Schroeder and Robert Shaw. We're the Fantasy Bastards. We're here to talk some football with you right before the season starts.
Thanks, guys, for joining us. We're going to be jumping into our Week 1 picks, basically who we think is going to win on a game-by-game basis. As we go through the games, we're going to break it down a little bit for you. And then from there, we're going to get into a couple players who we think are going to really be breakout, a couple players that we think are going to be busts, and a couple people that are going to be, kind of sneaky plays that you wouldn't think to start. But before we jump into that, I don't know about you guys, but I'm incredibly excited that this football season is beginning tomorrow. At last, the day has come.
The day has come. We're finally here talking about it. Just a little background on the three of us. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, so we are in full tank mode this season. So maybe they can do something right for once and, lose and get a good draft pick.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I mean,
trust the process.
Trust the process. You guys are in a fight now with the Jets, and you got them Week 1. This is going to be like loser bowl, as much as possible. Who can take the hardest?
Sadly, I think the Bills have a really good chance Week 1, so that could be problematic in our number 1 overall pick. But anybody, we need a quarterback. So these guys over here are Panthers fans. They already have their quarterback.
Yeah. So I'm projecting a pretty good season, probably 9 to 10 wins for us. But, we'll get into more of that whenever we get into our picks also.
Yep.
So, we can go ahead and jump into those. And so, as you know, the first game is tomorrow. I'm incredibly excited. And it's Kansas City, New England. So, Rob, kind of run me through some thoughts on some guys you're looking at, some guys you really want to watch, and who you think is going to win.
Well, I think I'll just say who's going to win. New England, and my answer to that is duh. Yeah. It's New England. They only got better this offseason. They just came off of a huge, epic Super Bowl win. Kansas City, I think they're a very good team, but they just don't ever match up well. And I'm interested to see how Brandon Cooks is going to do this first game. Now that Edelman's injured, how he'll fit into that offense. I'm really looking forward to seeing him. I think he could be really good this season. He could be a breakout guy to jump into the top 5 this year.
Okay. Joe, what do you think about the game? I'm assuming that you're picking Pats to win. You already said picking Pats.
I'm taking Chiefs all the way. No, just kidding. No, I think the Pats are definitely going to win this one. And since Rob stole my first player, I was most interested in Brandon Cooks. I'll say I'm interested to see Kareem Hunt, and how he looks in the games that matter.
See if he meets the hype,
Yeah, which I have my skepticism whether he will, but yeah.
I think we're going to sweep Pats right here, guys. I'm not picking against the Pats. They have a chance at going undefeated again, honestly. They don't have the easiest schedule. I was looking at that earlier today. It's not the easiest, but, their offense is just going to be so good. With the addition of Brandon Cooks, you have to remember, last year, they won the Super Bowl without Gronk, their best offensive weapon. And now they're just getting more weapons, and they added a lot to their secondary. So, they could be a really good team. So, obviously, I'm picking the Pats to win. But the guy that I'm interested in looking at is actually Tyreek Hill. This is going to be his second year in the league. There have been tons of reports that he's going to be the main weapon in the Andy Reid offense. So I want to see if they're going to continue running him the ball. I want to see if they're going to try to use him more as a wide receiver. I actually haven't been that high on him this season. But, he could easily prove me wrong if I can start to see how different ways that they're going to actually get him the ball in the offense. And if they can find creative ways to get him the ball and, get him probably 7 to 8 touches, maybe even up to 10 touches, he could have a really successful year.
That sounds good. Yeah, Mike Gillislee's another one I'll be watching, see how that backfield ends up settling. So,
well, the next game that we're going to be bringing up is, Rob, your team, Jets versus Bills. So go ahead and let you start us off on your thoughts on this, and who do you like?
I like the Bills. It's the Jets. This is one of the worst rosters I've ever seen. I don't even think Buffalo could screw this up. From the Bills side, I'll be really interested to see how Zay Jones does. He's kind of might be the number one option with Jordan Matthews being a little hurt. And, he could be I have him a little later in the show I'll be talking about. And then from the Jets, I have no one. No, I'll get to that a little later. But there's just not a lot of fantasy upside there. The Bills' defense isn't that good, so there could be some there. But I got the Bills in this one. I think they'll win in an ugly game with lots of turnovers and 20 to 12 or something like that. So, what about you, Joe? Who you got?
Fair enough. I do like the Bills to win this one. Though you said I want to see. I don't really think they could screw this up like you were daring them to, but. Yeah, I can't really say this is a game I'm excited to see, but
no.
Yeah,
I am looking to see who the top dog in that Bills receiving core will be, whether it's Matthews, whether it's Zay Jones, maybe Charles Clay gets some love finally.
That may be later in the show.
He's the guy who's spent the most time there with those teams.
True. Schroeder?
I mean, we're going to sweep it again here, guys. Bills all the way. One of the things I'm going to be really interested in seeing is how they're going to actually be using LaShawn McCoy. I mean, he was the Bills were the top rushing team in the league last year. And with a new coach, a lot of word has come out that they're just going to run him into the ground. And, I have him in a couple leagues, so I hope that's the case. I'm really interested in seeing his usage and seeing how effective he can be without Sammy Watkins as kind of like a deep threat. Even in games Watkins didn't participate in last year, McCoy was still, a top 5 option. I expect him to continue that. On the other side of the ball, I'm going to be looking at, if there's even a possibility of anyone on the Jets to step up as their top wide receiver. Robbie Anderson's really the guy I'm looking at, but potentially later on down the line, a few weeks from now when Austin Seferian-Jenkins, I know that's like kind of a name no one's thinking about, but whenever he comes back from his suspension, I think potentially he could actually start to get into the fantasy conversation of, hey, is this a startable tight end? And so I just want to see if anyone is actually going to go and grab a job for the Jets this year, for the wide receivers at least.
That's interesting.
True. I'm also interested to see how Tyrod Taylor fares without his top target. They've kind of set him up to fail there, but I like Tyrod Taylor. I hope he doesn't. I hope he proves them wrong.
To be fair, they didn't have him half of last season, so it's almost like nothing changed. But we'll see.
There's been a lot of turnover in that receiving core.
So the next game we got is the Eagles, who are at the Redskins. So we'll go ahead and start it this time with you, Joe. Who do you like, and who are you interested in seeing?
I guess I'll go with the Redskins. They're at home. Yeah, I'm interested to see Terrell Pryor in his new home. I watched him a little bit in the preseason. He had some bad drops. I know he's one of your guys, so
yeah, I love that. Love Terrell Pryor.
I had to harp on. I had to joke with you a little bit about those drops, but I mean, I think he's a very high upside player there, and I'm interested to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah. What about you, Rob?
Well, I'm going with the upset here. I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Fly, Eagles, fly, huh?
Fly, Eagles, fly. I know it's preseason, okay, but in the dress rehearsal, I was not impressed with the Redskins. Now, I do think that they're going to get better as the season goes, but I think with the new receiving core, swapping in some new receivers for some old ones who left, I think it could be some growing pains for the Redskins. I don't love the Eagles this year. I really don't love Mayer, but I think they're going to be a little bit better. I think Carson Wentz gets a little bit better. That defense looks a little bit better. I think they take them by surprise week 1. As far as players I'm really interested in, Carson Wentz is one of them. Is he going to make that jump, that second-year jump? He wasn't really fantasy relevant last season. more of a stash in a dynasty league kind of player. But I'm curious to see how he'll do. And I'm also curious to see if Jordan Reed actually stays healthy for all 16 games. I say no, but there's the first time for everything. So Eagles, I'm going with the Eagles.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I can understand where you're coming from. This is a pretty close game, but I'm going to have to go with the not-so-racist Redskins. And here's the reason for that. The Eagles still have a young quarterback, but really what I'm interested in seeing is Kirk Cousins and hopefully the continuity that has continued through. He has a new offensive coordinator. He has a lot of new weapons at receiver. And so hopefully he can keep it up from what he was doing last year, having a really good year. And I think they're actually going to win this game. But looking on the other side of the ball, one of the people that I'm interested in seeing, even for the full season, but specifically in this game, is Zach Ertz. And that's because Jordan Matthews got traded during the offseason, actually even during the preseason, I should say. So without Jordan Matthews as kind of being the go-to target, who is Carson Wentz going to start to look at to, get a lot of receptions as a safety blanket? I'm putting my money right now on Zach Ertz, and I want to see if that bet's going to pay off.
Nice.
No love for Aguilar here.
Nope.
Yeah, we're not fans of Nelson Aguilar.
All the way, we're hands off. We are not taking Aguilar.
All right, next game up is Raiders at Titans. Rob, who do you like?
I like the Raiders in this game. And this is a tough one because these are two teams that I have going to the playoffs this season. But I love the Raiders' offense, like maybe a little bit to a flaw. I love Lynch, Cooper, Crabtree, Derek Carr. I think they're going to be clicking on all cylinders. I don't like Tennessee's defense. I like this to be a close, high-scoring game. I think that with some of the new weapons, kind of like the Redskins, it might be a little bit of learning, getting everyone involved with Corey Davis and Eric Decker. But I like Oakland in this one. I think they just have too much on offense for Tennessee to overcome.
Okay. Joe?
I'm going home team again here. I'm going with Tennessee Titans.
So boring. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, a little bit. I think that might change a little bit this season.
Okay.
But yeah, I think this is – I agree with Rob. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I had both of these teams as division winners. So, I like them both.
So you're copying me.
Or you're copying me. I'm excited to see Marshawn Lynch in this game, what kind of workload he gets there after a year away from football.
Well, Joe is a big fan of Marshawn Lynch, so I think we all know that one.
My fantasy nemesis.
In this game, I'm actually going to be picking the Titans. I was excited about them last year. This is the year where they're going to be pulling off a 10-11 win season. You heard it here first. Marcus Mariota is going to take the next step. He's going to be a very good quarterback in this league. I like the Titans. They're a home team. I think they're just built to win now. You look at their options at receiver. They have 4 different guys that could really contribute. They have a great tight end who can do everything. They have a great running game. Their defense, it's not spectacular, but it's solid enough. And while they're going to be facing a great Oakland Raiders offense, the Oakland Raiders defense is still suspect that. Well, they can still be beaten. Let's just say that way. And, you saw it last year. They had tons of shootouts. And so I'm kind of expecting the same thing, but I'm expecting the Titans defense just hold on enough to take the win.
Should be a lot of fantasy points scored in that game.
Well, I think they'll be in our later on discussion.
Speaking of a lot of fantasy points being scored, next game we have is the Jaguars at the Texans. Fantasy goodness all around. Am I right, guys?
Yes.
You are right.
So many points.
All right, Joe, what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, I guess I kind of have to go home team again here. And a lot of it is playing into the emotional side of things. I believe that the Texans want to win this game for their city after everything that's happened there with Hurricane Harvey. And, yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty low-scoring game. A lot of good defense. Maybe not so fun to watch. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see Leonard Fournette, though, to see what kind of workload he gets and if it really matters.
You know what, Joe? I'm with you on that. I'm going with Houston. I agree what you said with the Hurricane. I think they're really going to want it. But my real reason I think Houston's going to win is 2 words: Blake Bortles. That's it. I mean, do I need to say anything else? I think it'll be I think it'll be a low-scoring, close game. I think Fournette's going to run the ball a lot. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I think Houston will probably win, 16-6 or something. It's going to be low scoring. So I'm going with Houston.
I'm going with Houston too. The only player that I guess I'm really interested in seeing besides Fournette would be DeAndre Hopkins to see if he can bounce back from last year. He had an awful year last year. He's way too talented to put up another one of those years. Unfortunately, he did get his contract, and so that kind of takes away a little bit of incentive for him to perform this year. But hopefully, he'll still be able to put up, monster year from like about 2 years ago, put up similar numbers to that, and still be, a fantasy impact wide receiver 1. Next game we're going to is the Cardinals at the Lions. And Rob, who do you like here?
Can I pick no team here? No. I'm going with the Cardinals on this one. Bit of maybe a surprise. I'm interested to see what Carson Palmer will do this year, how he's going to respond. He had a good second half of last season, and I just think they're ready for a bounce back year. They might not be playoff bound, but I am interested to see. Because this was a team that was in the NFC Championship game 2 years ago. So there's a lot of talent still there. As far as who I'm interested to see on the Detroit Lions side is Amir Abdullah. Is he really going to be the workhorse back in Detroit? I'm not really sure how that's going to work out. I'm curious to see. And I think Theo Riddick's going to get a lot of work taken away. So I don't know if he's a guy you can trust week to week.
Mm-hmm.
Joe,
what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Rob. I think the Cardinals win this one. I don't trust that Lions defense at all. I'm not sure they're going to be any better than they were a year ago. I think they'll be very vulnerable through the air, and they'll be vulnerable on the ground to a guy like David Johnson. So, I'm interested to see Carson Palmer. I think he's a lot healthier than he was a year ago.
Yeah, David Johnson's really good.
That's good. That's good fantasy football analysis right there. David Johnson's
that's right. Listen to me, folks.
You heard it here first, guys. David Johnson.
David Johnson will be good.
Yeah, that's revolutionary.
What about you, Schroeder?
Okay, this is really a coin flip of a game. Whenever it's a coin flip, I'm going to side with the home team. So I'm going Lions here, different than you guys. Obviously, besides David Johnson, who am I excited about? The answer is no one. So I'm going to move on to the next game. I don't think there's going to be, outside of David Johnson and these two teams, I'm not sure how much fantasy value is going to be coming from those guys. You might find a receiver 2. Maybe Abdullah gets to RB2 later in the year. Maybe, and Fitz is what Fitz is. But other than that, there's not that much there that I'm really excited about.
I will say I'm interested to see if John Brown is healthy or not. How many snaps?
Yeah. He has had lingering injury concerns. So,
and when he's healthy, he's good.
Agree.
Next game, we got Steelers at the Browns. Rob?
I think I'm gonna go with the Steelers on this one. Why? I mean, I like what Cleveland's doing, like long term, as far as acquiring draft picks, kind of slowly building their team. But they're not going to beat Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has loaded up. They finally have Martavis Bryant back. Le'Veon Bell's ready to go. I don't think there's going to be a lot of holdout bust potential. We'll see how that goes, but he's still a talented back. They have a Hall of Fame quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown. Heck, they even got Vance McDonald recently. They got weapons. They got so many weapons. So I think they're just going to overpower. I think that I'll be interested to see how DeShone Kizer does. I'm actually starting him in the league, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I think they'll be able to. I think they'll be able to score some points, but I think Cleveland's defense will not be able to stop anything. Pittsburgh will score in the 30s at least in this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Steelers they have way too much firepower for the Browns to deal with. As good as that offense was a year ago, they had a guy like Martavis Bryant back to the mix. Could be an ugly first game for DeShone Kizer in the NFL, but I'm excited to see him, how he looks out there. If he has any sort of chemistry with Corey Coleman and these guys.
Well, this is actually going to be shocking. I'm still going to pick the Steelers, but here's the shocking thing. I think it's actually going to be closer than you guys expect. I think Cleveland actually upgraded both sides of their team, offense and defense. They actually have a very good O-line. Hopefully that Kizer can limit his mistakes, not turn the ball over that much, and the Cleveland D can take a step forward. The management has done a great job, and the player that I'm really interested in seeing is Josh Gordon. I'm just kidding. He's not coming back ever. The player that I'm interested in seeing is Martavis Bryant on the other side of the ball for Pittsburgh. Just see how he comes back. There's been a lot of hype about him, how he's added a lot of muscle. And if he's still as fast as he was before he got suspended, then that could be a big problem to an already potent Pittsburgh offense.
Good alliteration there, Schroeder. I had to point that out.
Potent Pittsburgh offense. Next game we got up is the Falcons at the Bears. Joe, you can start us off on this one.
Why do I have to start off on this one? Just kidding. Going with another road team here. I like the Falcons to win this one. I think the Bears' situation is just a mess right now.
Wait, are you saying Mitchell Trubisky is not going to be a franchise quarterback?
What?
I'm saying he's not going to start this game.
Fair enough.
Mike Glennon, everybody, Wolfpack.
I just don't think they have enough firepower to get it done against what should still be a pretty potent Falcons offense. Mm-hmm. And their defense isn't terrible.
Okay, Rob?
Yeah, I got Atlanta on this one. I think it'll be a little closer than people are thinking it to be. I think the Bears will move the ball. They'll surprise people a little bit. I think at the end of the day, Atlanta's offense is just going to be too much to handle. Kyle Shanahan leaving, I think it makes a bit of a difference. I don't think that it makes all the difference. I think they're still going to be clicking, especially against this Bears defense. The player I'm interested to see is which one of these Bears receivers is going to step up and be the number one guy. Will it be Kevin White? Will it be Kendall Wright? I don't really know, but I will be interested to see. Right now, by default, it's Kevin White, but I wouldn't be surprised. Kendall Wright's got some experience. He could end up jumping ahead as the guy, number one receiver in Chicago. Schroeder?
All right, we're going to sweep Falcons here. I mean, the Falcons are what they are. We already know, they're offensive guys who to draft. Obviously, you're going to be starting the Matt Ryans, the Julio Jones, the Devontae Freemans. So there's not going to be really any surprise there, so I don't really have to watch any of those guys close. What I would want to see is if Jordan Howard can repeat his rookie year. I mean, the guy was second in the NFL in yards last year as a rookie, second to Zeke. I want to see if he can actually continue that trend and actually be a feature, in the future top 5 running back. So I'll be interested to see about that. Other than that, I mean, this Bears team doesn't really have that much to get excited about. Next game up, Ravens at Bengals. And Rob, we'll start with you on this one.
I'm going with the Bengals here. I liked the way they looked in the third preseason game, usually when all the starters are playing. I'm a little concerned about how that offensive line is going to hold up, but they got A.J. Green back healthy, which is going to be huge for them. Their defense is still okay, and honestly, I'm just not that impressed by Baltimore. I think that at home, Cincinnati will be able to handle the Ravens. There's not a lot of weapons on the Ravens. They have Joe Flacco, who has, he's won a Super Bowl before, but not quite at that level anymore. and some old aging receivers, and Brashad Perriman, who we haven't really seen much from early in his career. And they have Terrence West, Danny Woodhead, just not guys that scream out at you. The defense, while it was very good last year, struggled in the last 4 games last season. So I'll be interested to see. I think it'll be probably an uglier game, but I think Cincinnati handles this one. Joe?
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely like the Bengals in this one. I mean, I know they lost some pieces on that offensive line, but that Baltimore offensive line isn't anything to brag about. And, yeah, I think having A.J. Green back healthy, I think giving Dalton one of his favorite red zone weapons, Tyler Eifert, back for however many games we get him is going to be interesting. I'm interested to see how the backfield situation shakes out for the Bengals. We all know who should be starting there, but he's not listed as the current starter right now. We'll see how the touches shake out week 1.
You're talking about Gio Bernard, right? He should be atop the.
Yes.
I think he's obviously talking about Joe Mixon, and we're going to
Joe Mixon
here. I will say a couple things. Number one, I'm interested in seeing how the Ravens defense actually plays. I think they have a chance to be actually a very good defense this year. So we'll see if they can actually compete with the Bengals, potentially high-scoring offense. The other thing I'm interested in seeing is how many more playmakers the Ravens can add on their offense that are over 30. Because, my God, they are old. Every single one of their players, apparently that's a requirement. But they're not fun to watch. You can get some fantasy production out of them, but they're not fun to watch.
So maybe they can – oh, sorry.
Not excited about Buck Allen?
No, I'm not excited about Buck Allen. I mean, Danny Woodhead, I guess, in some PPR leagues is interesting. But, I mean, you got Mike Wallace, Macklin. I don't think any of those guys is going to be putting up a wide receiver, even top 20 season. So
don't maybe know who their tight end is?
I think they have like 7 of them. And they
none
like,
of them are any good.
They like to rotate them in and out just to, kind of aggravate people a lot.
Yeah.
Next game up, we got the Colts, Andrew Luckless Colts, I should say, against the Rams. So, Rob, who do you like?
I got the Rams in this one because the Colts are not good without Andrew Luck. A lot of people give Andrew Luck a hard time over the years. He's had nothing to work with. So you might be thinking I have a lot of confidence in the Rams right now, but let's not be mistaken. I think this is an ugly game. There's going to be turnovers like crazy. But I like the Rams in this one. I like them to kind of surprise now that they got a whole new receiving core. Sammy Watkins will play week 1. We know at least that. I don't know for how long. But the guy I'm interested in watching is Cooper Kupp. I'm curious to see how he's going to do. I think he could be really good in PPR leagues, especially as a rookie. Looked really good out of the slot in the preseason. Him and Goff seem to have some good chemistry there. So I'm going Rams on this one.
Yeah. Joe?
I would agree with you. I think the Rams are going to win this one. I don't believe in Scott Tolzien, or I don't even.
Who does?
I don't even know who the backup center is in Indianapolis either. So, yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be an ugly contest here. And Rob stole my pick. I'm interested to see Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
And how things shake out for him.
You guys are fools if you think that the Rams can so easily get off the stench of their old coach, Jeff Fisher. Honestly, I think it's going to take a couple of years for them to turn the program around. They got Sammy Watkins, yes, but he is still learning the playbook from all accounts, and he does have a lot of questions about injury. I can't believe I'm picking the Colts to win this game, especially on the road, but I think they're just going to do just enough to eke it out. The Rams, I am interested in seeing how Gurley responds after his very bad year last year, seeing if that Rams offense can actually get him some blocking. But other than that, I'm going to pick a Colts and tight one, probably, close to like a 21-20 type of game. Next game we have up is Panthers at 49ers. So, Rob, who do you like?
Panthers. I like the Panthers.
Panthers for 3 wins, huh?
Yeah, this is the 3-0 after 1 week. I can't get any better than that.
I like that too.
I like the Panthers in this one. this is going to be a bounce back year for the Panthers. I think after a lot of teams have that Super Bowl hangover, and I think this is a good team to bounce back against. I like what John Lynch is doing with the 49ers, but kind of like you were saying with the Rams, it's going to be a process. I think they'll be better than they were last year, but I don't think this is the game that they started. Who I'm curious to see is how Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Stewart are going to be utilized, how much playing time each one of those running backs gets. I'm going to be keeping my eye on that this first game. And then from the 49ers standpoint, I'm curious how many catches Pierre Garçon's going to get. He seems to be the main target there, and I wonder if that'll translate, especially with – I don't see their defense being great off the get-go, so I feel like they're going to have to throw their way late in games, so Garçon will be the guy. You guys? We have some technical difficulties. Give me a second here. I just lost the guys, so we'll have to re-invite them back in. Sorry about that, y'all. Technical difficulties. I'm going to invite them back into the chat here. Matthew Schroeder. Thanks for bearing with us, y'all. I'm going to make sure I get them back. Just so you guys know, listen to me. Don't listen to them. They're not that good at this. No, I'm just kidding. They're great. Just to kind of let y'all know what we'll be doing later in the show, we're going to be going through some lists. We call them the Magnificent Bastards, the Total Bastards, and the Sneaky Bastards. Magnificent being start them this week. Total being stay away from them, and sneaky being some guys who might be a little more of a sleeper. And give me 1 second. Hello. Okay. No, it's still we're still broadcasting. We're live right now. I was explaining to the audience. So, do you want to pull your computer back up, and I'll just keep going? Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. We're going to take a quick break, y'all. It'll be a couple-minute break. So just a little background. We don't really, we're pretty amateur. This is our first broadcast. So just bear with us. Once you get to this part, you can just fast forward a couple minutes and we'll get everything started up again. So we'll be back pretty soon. Maybe we can edit it out. We'll have to experiment with that a little bit. We're back.
Hey, Rob, can you hear us?
I can hear you, and
we cannot hear you right now.
Oh, for real? You can't hear me right now?
Still can't hear you. Give us a sec.
Okay. Y'all can hear me out there. They just can't hear me. Yeah. This is our first show. Y'all have to forgive us a little bit.
Okay. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Yep, technical difficulties. Sorry about that. Still can't hear me, I assume.
Let's just.
I can hear y'all loud and clear.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Yep.
Oh,
can you hear me?
Can't hear you for whatever reason. Okay, now I can.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay.
All right.
Okay. So I was explaining to the audience while y'all's computer froze about our magnificent total sneaky, just which one each one was. So we were in the middle of talking, and y'all can just fast forward through all that in the middle. And we were talking about some of our picks. Schroeder, which game were we on?
I believe it was Panthers.
The Panthers 49ers game.
Okay. I think the Panthers will win. What about you guys?
Joe?
Well, yeah, I got to take the Panthers. They're my team, and I just like them in this one. I think they made improvements on both sides of the ball. I like the weapons they added, and honestly, I think San Francisco is going to be a much better team than they were a year ago. But I think it's going to be a process for them. Whereas the Panthers are going to go ahead and rebound, I believe. I'm excited to see McCaffrey and even Curtis Samuel a little bit with the pieces they added.
So let's go ahead and sweep Panthers. I'm excited about McCaffrey a lot as well. I mean, I'm a Panther fan, kind of a homer pick, but I expect them to win too. If we don't win this one, we're going to be in deep trouble.
It's going to be a tough year.
Yeah, it'll be a tough year if we're losing the 49ers. Next game we got is actually probably one of the best games of the day, Seahawks at Packers. Rob, who do you like here?
Ooh, Seahawks at Packers. I like the Packers here. I think the Packers are going to be really hungry. I like all their weapons. They still have, obviously, Aaron Rodgers. They have Jordy Nelson. They just got weapons all over the place. The way Seattle played last season at the end, they seem to be one of those teams that often will get off to a slow start and then kind of finds their stride. So I'm going with the home team here, but I think it's going to be close. I think this is going to be the best game. And I'm interested to see how Russell Wilson bounces back this year without the injury, how he's going to fare. I think he's going to do a lot better this season. How about you guys?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Packers here too. It was a tough pick. I think it's going to be a very close game. Probably the best game of the day, I would agree. I'm interested to see how that Seattle backfield plays out. Are they just going to rotate 4 guys, have like a disgusting 4-man platoon there where we don't know who it's going to be week to week or play to play even? So, yeah.
If there's one team that has the Packers number, it's got to be the Seahawks. And I'm actually going to go with the road team Seahawks here. They added a trade up front, Sheldon Richardson, to an already disgustingly good defense. They have a very good offense, a very capable offense, I should say. On the side of the Packers, I guess what I'm interested in seeing, though, is if Randall Cobb can bounce back from his down year last year. Davante Adams kind of came in and stole his role. I expect a little bit of a regression from Adams, and I expect Randall Cobb to put up at least a decent year, maybe kind of in between some of the years he's had in the past. And so hopefully we'll see some of that this Sunday. And then we got our Sunday night game, nationally televised. The big news, Zeke is back. Giants at Cowboys. Rob, who do you like?
I got and you'll love this, sure. I got the New York Football Giants.
Oh, my gosh.
All right. Here we go. I think this is going to be a tougher year for the Cowboys. I think a lot of teams have film on Dak now and Ezekiel Elliott. I still think that the running game is going to be really good, but I think this could be a tougher year for Dak. I like what the Giants have done on defense. Eli Manning is, getting a little old, but I think that a lot of his weapons around him will do him some favors, even with Odell being a little banged up. I like the Giants. These guys always play down to the last play. The Giants have had a lot of success against the Cowboys lately. So I'm going with the New York Football Giants. Joe?
You had to say that twice. The New York Football Giants. Yeah. Also, that may be the best take I've heard on Eli Manning in a long time. He's a little bit. Yeah. I'm actually going Cowboys here, and I don't know how I feel about it, honestly. I feel like it's going to be a game where they just run the ball every single play. I think it's going to be kind of a screw you kind of game. I hate trying to pick my own narrative here and say that, but that's how I see it playing out. I think the Giants will be okay on defense this year, but I'm not convinced they're the elite unit they were anointed as last season.
Yeah.
I'm also interested to see if the Giants can run the ball at all, or if it's going to be not a pass-first offense, but a pass-only offense.
Yeah, I'm going Cowboys here too. Rob, you did make a good point. I think there is going to be some regression, and you said the Cowboys are going to have a rough year. The Giants are going to have a rougher year than the Cowboys do. I think they're bound for a big regression. If you look at their point differential last year, they were very lucky to make it to what? They had 11 wins, I think?
11 wins.
Yeah, they're very lucky to make it to 11 wins. I don't think that's going to continue this year. Yeah, they added a few playmakers on their offense, but they don't have any running game whatsoever. I think their defense is going to take a step back, and Eli Manning is getting worse and worse as he gets older and older. And, he's not pulling a Tom Brady. Father Time is not on his side. He is going down quick. He has one receiver who I feel confident he can get it to. That's Odell Beckham. Other than that, I guess the thing that I'm interested in seeing, besides how many times they're going to run with Ezekiel Elliott, just so that they can use him as much as possible before his suspension gets in place, is to see if Paul Perkins can survive one game as being the starting running back, or if he gets replaced halfway through the game for being incredibly incompetent. Moving on. We have the Saints at the Vikings. So, Rob, we'll let you start us off here.
I'm going with what will be the NFC South champion, New Orleans Saints. Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Hot take there. I got the Panthers at 2, making the playoffs as the wild card. Yeah, I like the Saints in this one. I love their offense. Like that needs to be said. But I like the addition of Adrian Peterson, Alvin Kamara. I think it gives them a little more at running back. They're going to be doing a committee. They've liked doing that for a lot of years now. I think that Alvin Kamara will finally be that Darren Sproles receptions guy that Drew Brees loves to lean on. I love Michael Thomas, as y'all probably know. And I think their defense will get a little bit better with some of the pieces they added in the draft. I don't think this is it's going to take a lot of work to change that defense. In fantasy football, whenever I see New Orleans, I usually am like, all right, let's just start every player who's playing against them. But I don't love the Vikings. I see them getting worse. I don't believe in Sam Bradford. I don't really believe in that offensive line. I think it's going to be a rough year for them, and I think it's going to start week 1 against New Orleans. Joe?
I agree completely with you, I think, on this one. I see an improvement for the Minnesota offense. I don't think they're going to be quite as anemic as they were a year ago.
Good word there.
We'll see how their offensive line plays out. That's one of the toughest things to predict from year to year. But I do think their unit will be a little bit more solid, and I think they come out and start off this season with a victory against the NFC South cellar dwellers, the New Orleans Saints.
I will agree with that. I think the Saints or Bucks are going to be on the cellar. Probably the Saints, and it's going to be because of their defense. I think their offense is going to take a step back too. I'm going to pick Minnesota to win this game. Without Brandon Cooks, I think it's going to be a little bit of a readjustment. Their defense is still not that good. On the other side of the ball, Sam Bradford, yes, he's Sam Bradford. He's not a great option. But here's the thing: you threw him into a week 2 situation where their main quarterback had gotten hurt, in Teddy Bridgewater, and the guy still had the highest completion percentage ever in history in the NFL. Like that's a solid job. He has another year with that scheme. They got more weapons to Dalvin Cook. Their offensive line cannot get worse. Like it just could not get worse from last year. And they have a guy who I absolutely love in Stephon Diggs, who I think is going to take a massive leap forward this year. Give me the Vikings at home over the New Orleans Saints.
But Schroeder, what about Ted Ginn?
Hey, I do like Ted Ginn too, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. The guy drops more passes than probably anyone in the NFL except for his teammate Coby Fleener. So between them, I think Drew Brees might actually retire mid-season just because he's so fed up with his incompetent wide receivers. All right, going to the next game, we got Chargers at Broncos. This is the final game Monday night, the really late ESPN game at 10:20. Rob, who do you like here?
I'm going with the Chargers here. Bit of a surprise, potentially. I just don't see that Denver offense finding its rhythm. I think Trevor Siemian is a game manager at best. I liked the Chargers last year. I think the Chargers were an underrated team last year. They lost a lot of close games. Few things go a different way, and they could have been a contender for the playoffs. And I really like, and this leads me into my fantasy intrigue from this game, is how Keenan Allen's going to do. Keenan Allen was incredible in week 1. I don't even know if he played the whole game, but he had 6 catches right away. He seemed to be Phillip Rivers' favorite guy, and he had a really good year up until he got hurt the previous season. So I think that offense can be really explosive with Keenan Allen back in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
They've done on the offensive side of the ball. I think the weapons staying healthy is the main issue here. But they're all healthy and pretty much going into week 1 except Mike Williams. But we'll see how that turns out. And I can't really imagine the Broncos' offense effectively moving the ball against what I think is a pretty underrated Chargers defense.
Yeah.
I like Joey Bosa out there.
Yeah.
That's a good player.
I'm going to be having to pick the Chargers too. They're going to have, as Joe mentioned, an underrated defense. Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram on bookends is going to be a pretty solid start to what already is kind of an underrated defense. Their offense, they have a lot of receivers. They have a lot of firepower, and Phillip Rivers is a pretty good quarterback. Not amazing, but good enough to get the job done. The Broncos still have an elite defense, which might keep them in this game. But if you ask me to name one of the most vanilla and boring offenses in the NFL, it's got to be the Broncos, led by Trevor Siemian. So there's nothing really there to get excited about. I guess you can say, hey, is C.J. Anderson actually going to keep the lead role and not get injured? Potentially, yeah. But I guess that's what I'd have to watch. That and Keenan Allen and how he adjusts to actually coming back from what seems to be his third major season-ending surgery injury. All right. Yeah, he definitely has. So before we wrap up, we want to quickly go through a couple guys who we really like for this week, just guys who we think you should be in your fantasy lineups, and some guys take out your fantasy lineups, and some guys that could be deep sleepers if you're in a deep league who you might want to start thinking about putting them in your lineup for this Sunday. So, Rob, we're going to go ahead and start with you. You kind of already introduced this segment a little bit. Can you go ahead and run it down, please?
So we're going to take a look by position. We're going to look at our quarterbacks, and we're going to look at the ones we like, the ones we hate, the ones we think are sneaky, and then we'll go to running back, and we'll follow down there. So I'll start, and then I'll pop over to you guys in a second.
Yeah.
So with my magnificent bastards for quarterback, I have Ben Roethlisberger, Marcus Mariota, and Derek Carr. The one Roethlisberger's playing Cleveland. He's got all those weapons. I really like that week one matchup. But Marcus Mariota, Derek Carr, they're playing against each other. I think that's going to be the highest scoring game of all these week one matchups. I don't think either one of those defenses is great. I think both teams have tons of weapons. I like a lot of fantasy points going to these guys. Joe, who do you have as your magnificent bastards?
Well, you already talked about one of them, Marcus Mariota. Also threw Carson Palmer on that list. I've already mentioned. I think that Detroit secondary is pretty generous. At least it was a year ago, and I don't really see that trend stopping this season.
Yeah.
Schroeder, what about you?
There's only one quarterback I'm going to mention you guys haven't, and here's the beginning of the analysis. Cam Newton, he's facing the 49ers, and that's the end of the analysis. I don't think there's really anything else that needs to be said.
You know what? I'm good with that. I'm just going to segue into the next one because, yeah, Cam has a really good matchup. My total bastards that I will not be starting this week. I have Kirk Cousins going up against Philadelphia and Matthew Stafford against Arizona. Stafford against Arizona, I just don't love the matchup there. I just don't love the Lions this year. I see a regression. He might show up on my list quite a bit. And if you look at how much he's thrown, it's decreased every season, and I expect that to continue. And then Kirk Cousins kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think there's going to be a bit of a learning curve getting Terrell Pryor involved, learning the new receivers now that Doxson and Garcon's gone. So I think there's going to be some growing pains there. I like what Jim Schwartz has done with Philadelphia's defense. I think he's getting them better year by year. So I think he's going to struggle in week one. Joe?
Yeah, my total bastard quarterback isn't really a guy I think you should be benching this week. But for your expectations, I have Drew Brees here. I mean, I don't really trust any of those weapons outside of Michael Thomas that are going to be playing this week. And for the first few weeks, he's missing Willie Snead, one of his favorite targets, and he's going up against a pretty stingy secondary. I think just temper your expectations. Obviously, you're starting him, and of course, now that I've said it, he's probably going to blow up for 5 touchdowns, which
can happen.
So I'd be okay with that.
Schroeder, what about you?
The one guy that I'm absolutely not starting in any circumstances is Aaron Rodgers. And I'm just kidding about that case. But I do think he is going to have a little bit more of a down week than normal. If you look at his season numbers or his career numbers against Seattle, he has never put up a massive game against him. It's just someone that he struggled with consistently throughout his career. I think, he'll put up a decent game, but not enough to be, one of the top-tier quarterbacks this week. The nice thing is after he gets this week out of the way, the rest of the season can be looking pretty good for him. Rob, we'll go ahead and let you move on to your running backs.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to mention about Aaron Rodgers, I have him in one league. I'm contemplating. I would start him anyways, but it was serious consideration benching him with that bad matchup. Real quick, we're going to look at our sneaky bastards, just guys that if I know there's not a lot of injuries thus far this year, but these are guys maybe people aren't thinking about starting. Schroeder, do you want to start that one?
The guy I got on my list right now is Sam Bradford. And again, the analysis is he's second year in the system, kind of what I went over with on the actual game. I love Stephon Diggs taking a step forward. He's facing New Orleans this year. And honestly, with the New Orleans defense, this could be a little bit more of a shootout than possible. I think he can actually put up a pretty nice game for you. I'm guessing probably top 10. If you have it like let's say an entry to an Andrew Luck or a quarterback that you're not sure about, Sam Bradford I think is a pretty decent quarterback to be able to stream in.
Joe? Hey Joe, I can't hear you over here. I think the microphone.
I might have just been looking down.
I can hear you now, loud and clear.
I'm reading off my list here. Eli Manning is the guy I had on my list for this week, even though I just trashed him in our previous segment. But if there's going to be a week you're starting Eli Manning, I would go with this one. What I think is going to be a pretty awful Dallas secondary.
And you're going to get a lot of turnovers, but you'll still get a lot of production.
I think it's going to be a high volume passing attack because I'm not convinced they can run the ball.
Agree.
In any kind of way.
Agree.
What about you, Rob?
One guy that y'all didn't mention, I have Brian Hoyer, and I know you're thinking of the Panthers. I just think that the Panthers are going to get out on top of them a lot, and he's going to get a lot of garbage time throws, might get a touchdown or two, and he's a guy, especially in a two-quarterback league, if you're a little low on the list, you might want to throw him in, but it's not. I think the Niners offense will be better than what people are expecting, especially with Shanahan there. But yeah, I'm holding my breath on that a little bit. So segueing in to our running backs, our magnificent running backs this week, I have Le'Veon Bell, shocker, DeMarco Murray, and I have Christian McCaffrey, and I'll get into him a little bit. I think McCaffrey, I mean, it's like you said, Schroeder, it's the 49ers, but I think they're really trying to get Cam Newton hit less. I think they're going to be throwing to him out of the backfield a ton early in the season. So I think he's going to be a safe bet this week. Joe?
Yeah, I think he's going to be pretty effective running the ball too. We've seen what he can do. He's very quick. I like the call. I went with Todd Gurley here as my only magnificent bastard running back, and this is more of a volume thing than anything. I'm just not convinced that the Colts offense is going to be able to sustain any kind of drive. And I think Gurley is in for a bit of a bounce back. I'm not calling really for him to return to the top 5 form that he was 2 years ago, but it's tough for me to imagine him being as bad as he was a year ago. I definitely like him in this matchup.
Schroeder?
I got to go with Shady McCoy here. I think there's going to be a big volume play. I think they're going to be playing from ahead. I mean, you're going to be starting him regardless, but I would see no problem in him being a top 3 running back this week. And so, I mean, we'll see if that actually happens. But I think if you play him, you're going to get rewarded with quite a few points.
I like it. I like that one a lot, Schroeder. I'm a big fan of picking the Bills here.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, so one of the guys on my my running backs I will not be playing this week, Ty Montgomery, who's playing against Seattle. It's kind of like you were saying, Schroeder. That is a tough defense, and I don't really know what Ty Montgomery is yet. Is he a running back? Is he a receiver? I'm sure he'll get plenty of touches, but I think that this is going to be a struggle for them to move the ball a lot. They'll move the ball, but it's not going to be your typical Packers scoring every 5 seconds game. So I really don't like Ty Montgomery this week. I also don't like Mark Ingram this week. He's projected as the #1 back right now for the Saints, but we know Adrian Peterson's going to have some kind of role at some point, and Alvin Kamara. So I just don't feel confident in playing against him. And the Vikings do have a good defense, so I wouldn't start either one of those two. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I wouldn't feel comfortable starting any Saints running back right now, but just because we don't know how it's going to look from game to game. Plus, I think Peterson might see a few extra touches against his former team. I think Sean Payton's kind of a dick, and that's sort of the thing he would do.
That would be that kind of a dick move.
Sure. I went with Kareem Hunt here as a guy.
Ooh.
I'm a little bit concerned about, just because. I mean, people are seeming to be anointing him as a running back 1 already. Guy we haven't really seen play in the regular season. We really haven't seen. The guy we have not seen play in the regular season.
That's a good point.
I went back and looked at all of his preseason carries. I mean, he was good. I didn't really see him as a very special player. I haven't watched any of his Toledo tape because I don't know that it's relevant. But I'm a little bit concerned about him, especially in pass protection, how he's going to do there. And honestly, this is probably going to be a game where there will be a lot of passing situations for Kansas City. I expect him to be trailing in this game quite a bit.
And that's a good defense, too, he's going up against.
Yeah, it is.
You're going to like this pick a lot. My bust for this week is going to be Leonard Fournette. And here's the reasoning. It's not because of Fournette's skill set. I think he is a talented guy. I think he's going to have a good career. But he is coming off a little bit of an injury, and I think Houston knows the one thing that can beat him, and that's going to be the running game. They're not scared of Blake Bortles. I think they're going to sell out to stop the run. I could still see Fournette getting around 20 carries. I just think he's going to get 50 to 60 yards with those. And, it's really dependent on if he gets into the end zone. But I think we're going to see him pretty stifled in this game. And it's already not going to be a high-scoring game. If it has potential to, if you can find and fade him a little bit, find someone who has a better matchup that, is pretty close in terms of ADP, I'd probably take the shot there. Moving on, who do you think, Rob? Who do you have for your sneaky bastards at running back?
I'll tell you who I have. I have CJ Prosise. I'm really curious to see how he goes. And this is assuming all systems are a go. But, will Rawls hold up? I don't know if any of these running backs will hold up. But against the Packers, they're not known for a great defense. And I do see Green Bay scoring a little bit. So I'm curious to see if Prosise, how much he's going to get involved on third downs. He's very explosive. So he could be someone, especially in PPR leagues or if you're doing daily fantasy, somebody to look out for. I'm looking at Prosise this week. Joe?
Took the words right out of my mouth. He's my #1 sneaky bastard.
No kidding.
Among running backs this week. I think this will be a game script that features more passing than usual from Seattle. And honestly, if I foresee any guy in that backfield just taking the job and running away with it, it's CJ Prosise. I mean, he's a big guy. And people really kind of see him as more of a third down receiving back. I mean, he's 6'1", 220. He's got some size to him, and he's very fast. Pretty good athlete. I like him as a talent. We'll see if he can stay healthy.
It's interesting that you mentioned CJ Prosise. Green Bay, though they're not known for their defense last year, they were actually, if I remember correctly, the #1 run defense. And there's a reason for that. It's because they can't defend the pass at all. And so no team wants to run on a team when they can just throw on a team and get a lot more points. And so that kind of really goes into, what CJ Prosise will be good at. So he's an interesting. I put down here actually someone who probably is not going to be on a lot of radars this weekend, and it's Robert Kelly, the starting running back for the Washington Redskins. Here's why. In the past 2 games against Philadelphia last year, Washington was very heavy on the run. Matt Jones started one of those games, and I think he put up close to 20 points, if not over that, against Philly. And then Robert Kelly was actually the starter in the other, and I think he had around 60 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, that's an average. You know, they're averaging around 16 yards, or I'm sorry, 16 fantasy points per running back. That's pretty solid. It's a guy that you can get pretty cheap, even in your drafts right now. He's a guy I really like this week. I don't think the Philly defense is anything to be that concerned about. If I have room in my starting lineup, I'm going to be playing him.
Schroeder, I love that pick because I am a big Rob Kelly fan. I have him in several leagues. Mm-hmm. Looking at going on to our receivers, my magnificent receivers, I'm going to shoot out a name that, Schroeder, you're going to like. I got Stephon Diggs as one of my guys I love this week. He's playing New Orleans. I do think the defense is going to improve a little bit. But that being said, there's still a lot of fantasy points out there. And I think that Diggs is the most talented receiver of the receiving core. I just think this is his step forward year. And what better team to start against than the Saints? And like you did mention, Schroeder, Bradford, he's good at getting people the ball. He can be very efficient. So I'm taking a look at Diggs. I think this is the week you want to start him. What about you, Schroeder?
I picked a guy that is just coming back from suspension all year. That's Martavis Bryant. I think it's crazy to think that they're not going to take a couple shots in his first game back from a season-long suspension. It's Cleveland, so the matchup's obviously ripe for the taking, and I could see him having a big week.
Like it. I like it. Joe?
I went with a narrative-based pick here. I don't know how I feel about it, but I'm going with my gut here. I picked DeAndre Hopkins. And
Hopkins. Interesting.
Part of the reason is we mentioned how badly they want to win this game. Do the Texans, and I'm not really convinced that they're going to be able to run the ball that effectively in this one. And the depth chart is pretty barren behind Hopkins at this point. Fuller's out. Strong is still suspended the first game, I believe. And they just gave him a massive deal, so I think they might force feed him a little bit here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Joe. One guy I'm going to stay away from this week is, as much as I like him, I'm staying away from Jordy Nelson. Schroeder, the Legion of Boom. I mean, what more do I have to say? That's going to be a tough game. It's hard to know who they're going to throw the ball to. They have Devontae Adams. They have Randall Cobb coming back this year, maybe taking on a bigger role again. So I'm just not really comfortable with starting a lot of the Packers. I'd probably start Rodgers just because he's the best fantasy quarterback right now. But I'd stay away from Jordy Nelson this week if you can, just because that Seattle defense is very stout. And historically, you're right, they don't do very well against Seattle. Joe?
Well, I went with another guy. I went back to the same I've been tapping earlier in my picks. I went with T.Y. Hilton here.
He was on mine too.
I just don't believe that Tolzien is going to be able to get him the ball. I think there's going to be a lot of shorter passes. Maybe we have a Jack Doyle sighting in this game even without Andrew Luck. And it's just going to be a really tough game for the Colts all around, I believe.
I would stay away from T.Y. Hilton myself.
If you can. These are guys you drafted early, and you're probably going to be starting anyway.
I am, unfortunately, but
Hilton has pretty much flex appeal, maybe wide receiver 2 numbers, and you hope he gets a touchdown. The guys I'm staying away from this week are Alshon Jeffrey, a guy that I already don't like this season, but he's going up against Josh Norman this week, and just the fact that he's still getting acclimated to an offense. It's just not a matchup I like. The other guy that I'm probably fading a little bit is Emmanuel Sanders, just because this passing offense for the Broncos is not that great. I think the Chargers are underrated defense. They're going to take away an option. I think Sanders is less talented, so I'm just going to say that's the guy.
It's funny you said Alshon Jeffrey Schroeder. I had him on my magnificent list, and then I read that Josh Norman would be shadowing him, so I changed my mind very quickly on that. So one guy I can't wait to watch for my sneaky wide receiver is Zay Jones. I mean, Jordan Matthews is coming off injury. He's didn't have a full training camp and preseason to get ready with the Bills. So Bolden retired. So Zay Jones, he's the guy. I'm curious to see because that's not a very good defense. I think he could have some real value week one. If you're a little thin at receiver or if you're doing DraftKings or whatnot, I think Zay Jones could have a big game, maybe get the first Bills touchdown this season. So I'm going to be watching him. What about you, Schroeder?
I'm going to be picking, strangely enough, Ted Ginn. He's going up against a tough defense, but now with the news that Willie Snead is suspended 3 games, I think he's going to be getting a lot of snaps. I could see him breaking one, and just from there, them trying to actually get him involved in the offense early and often, take a deep threat, take the top off the defense. So I think Ted Ginn could actually have a pretty nice game, and I could actually see him becoming a pretty solid wide receiver 2 flex the entire year.
Yeah. Joe?
Kenny Amendola here, my DFS special of the week. He's the obvious candidate to fill the hole left by Edelman. I don't think that's going to happen all the time, but he's been in that offense forever. He's not the most durable guy, but I think he's going to run those underneath routes that Edelman did. Maybe not with the same quickness, but he's a guy I really like week one, even if not for the whole season.
Yeah.
All right, Rob, for tight ends, do you mind just quickly going through magnificent, total, and sneaky, and just giving a description for all three?
Yeah, absolutely. My magnificent, I'm going with Zach Ertz. You nailed that earlier, Schroeder. Ertz, he's going to be the guy now that Jordan Matthews is gone. I like that matchup against Washington, not the greatest defense there. Guy I'm staying away from, Martellus Bennett. A lot of people are liking him with the whole Packers situation. Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw to his tight ends that much. He didn't use Jared Cook a lot. I'm staying away from that. Somebody to look out. I'm looking at Charles Clay with Buffalo. Jets are an awful defense. That's all I really have to say. Joe, you said it earlier a little bit about how he's very familiar with the offense. So he's a guy I'll be looking at if I'm a little desperate at tight end. Joe?
Good picks all around. I went for my magnificent. I went with Brady Walker. I don't believe that there's anybody on the Oakland defense who can really match up with him, and he's still a favorite target of Sam Brad. I can't believe I almost said that about Marcus Mariota, the guy I like this week.
What an insult!
I know, but he has chemistry there.
Very nice.
Might take some time to get acclimated to the system still. And for my total bastard of the week, I went with Eric Ebron.
He was on my list.
It hurts me to say this because he's a dear friend. But no, I believe it's a really tough matchup for him. He's the guy who's missed a lot of August, missed most of training camp, and he's probably going to miss a lot of weeks throughout the season just because he's a guy who's really had a lot of trouble staying healthy. I think Matthew is really going to be able to challenge him out there. I don't see a ton of opportunities for him, especially this week.
Sure.
And also,
sneaky. That's right. I forgot about
took the words out of my mouth with Charles Clay.
Charles Clay.
Sneaky bet. And he was the guy I was hating on earlier in the offseason before Buffalo had the complete upheaval in their receiving corps. But yeah, he's the guy that Tyrod Taylor's familiar with. And for now, Tyrod Taylor's the starter in Buffalo.
Yeah. We'll see how long that lasts. But
he's got a cake matchup week one.
Yeah, good player team to be playing against. Schroeder, what about you?
You already mentioned him, Rob. For the guy I really like this week is Zach Ertz. I think they're going to be targeting him a lot in this game. For the Bucs, I didn't even really have one for tight end just because they're so volatile already. There's not one that I see that I'm just like, I'm really down on. But I will give you a little bit of a sleeper that I can see in there, and that's actually going to be Evan Ingram. This is a wide receiver in a tight end's body, or I guess a tight end in a wide receiver's body, one or the other.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who I think might try to be like kind of their secret weapon they use a lot against Dallas. It's kind of a mismatch. And so I could see him in his first NFL game actually having a solid NFL game and getting a lot of people excited about what his fantasy prospects hold. Before we let you guys go, I know we've kind of got over the limit. Is there any final thoughts that anyone had before we close out?
Just to let y'all know, this was a bit of a choppy show. This is our first show. We'll be doing these again. We're going to try to do them every week, releasing them on Wednesdays and Thursdays. We're going to alternate weeks. It's just when we have the availability to record. But we're going to be going through each week. We're going to talk about the matchups and some of the guys we like in fantasy this week. Maybe start off just talking about how, right we were, from week to week. Or I'm being optimistic. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this show and to talking with people. We're going to be working on some of the logistics of it a little bit. I know we had a little break there in the middle. What about you guys? Do you have anything else?
Yeah, as Rob said, we're going to be trying to get a little bit more connected with you guys as fans. And so in the upcoming shows, we're going to be telling you how to do that. And, hopefully we'll be able to next time also get some of the logistics work out and make sure the few of the glitches don't happen again.
Joe?
A bit of a rough start here, but we're excited for this season. We're excited to do this. This is something that we're doing in our spare time. Honestly, we probably put in the amount of research and time that some fantasy analysts do.
Yeah, we definitely do.
Just because we're such nerds. We're the fantasy bastards.
Yeah, we are the bastards.
That's right.
Well, guys, thanks for listening on behalf of all the fantasy football bastards. And remember, don't be a bastard.
Don't.
If you're going to